cave or the restless sea, we are meant to call from out of the past stories, strange and weird. Bellkeeper, toll the bell, so that all may know we are gathered again in the Weird Circle.
All right. And we're still going. Okay, well, this isn't going so hot here, but hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Still trying to figure out some of the things here. I don't know why it's not making me large, but we'll live with it for the moment. So I'm not sharing anymore. I thought that might be why, but anyway, just real quick, I just wanted to plug my book that's coming out. Edgar Allan Poe's Be Sprinkled with Scarlet. It's going to be on Kickstarter now. We did a Fund My Comic, which was successful. So we're moving it over to Kickstarter to hopefully find some new backers. We're gonna. It's going to be a quick. It's going to be a low goal and a quick campaign, so we can get things rolling on printing and get it fulfilled. So that's. I'm hoping for 3 weeks. I haven't actually looked to see whether I can do that or not. I think they will let me do that. So, so that is there. I'll just throw the link in the chat. And you go there and sign up, and you'll get a free trading card if you back a physical tier by Omer Garcia III, or Omer Glitch as he's known on YouTube. and you should check out his channel as well. But you will also get, if you back any tier, whether it's physical or digital, you also get a digital paperback collection of the stories that are featured in the book as well. So check that out. Now tonight we are talking with Jim Whitting, and without further ado, let's bring him in. Hey, Jim.
Oh, are we live? Is it? No,
Yeah,
we're live.
we're
All right.
I had some technical difficulties there, but that's what happens when you deal with a rank amateur.
Well, you disappeared for a while. I thought I was kicked off. My reputation before I get there. Oh, no.
So how are things going?
Things are good. Things are busy. Working on my art, working on some books, working on your book.
Yes. Jim's been a big help on getting this Be Sprinkled with Scarlet, bringing it to life. So I appreciate that. Maybe we'll get into some of that later. I guess what I want to do is just kind of where it started. I like to know the origin story. What got you into comics to begin with? Was comics the first thing that got you? Because I know you're a monster guy too. So was it? Were you a monster kid? Were you a comic kid? Were you both?
I was both. I had an older brother slash uncle. He was he was a couple of years older than I was, and he had a huge collection of 60s Marvel stuff and monster collection. And we used to watch the Super 8 monster movies and stay up and watch Chiller Theater and sit around and draw. And I would just mull over his collection. I could tell you what issues of what, who was in where, and what happened then. And so, yeah, it all kind of came together at the same time. Just fell in love with it, loved it from the beginning, loved being scared crapless, Horror movies were just, when you're 6, 7 years old, it's a lot, but it's, it really fascinated me. So, yeah, I'm both, really.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think I started with comics. I'll ask you this too, because people always ask me this, but what was the first comic you remember reading?
FF number 2.
Wow, nice. That's a good start.
Had a copy of FF number 2 and pretty complete collection. I mean, this was in the 60s, and to date myself, so all the stuff was in the 60s, and then I probably was in my teens in the 70s, and then able to go out and buy stuff, and by that was a whole different phase of Marvel. But yeah, I always had a soft spot for FF2, and actually acquired a copy a few years back. I had sold my collection, unfortunately, to pay for a new roof on my house. And so then I had to start going out and buying it again. And, fortunately, I got it a few years before the price jumps really went crazy. But, I still paid a lot more than I did back in the day. But yeah, FF2, also some early Captain Marvel, Fawcett, Captain Marvel stuff.
Okay.
It's interesting. There was an issue of Captain Marvel with Bullet Man, and he was fighting one of the Nazi villains, and it turned out to be the first appearance of the boy who's Shazam too. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but it was also the debut of the artist who would go on to do that series. And so, I look to buy those books when I go back now, and they're, you're talking $6,000.
Yeah,
reprint this, please.
Yeah, it's killer. I don't know. I know so many people that went through it's either, I had all these great things and my mom threw them away, or it's, something happened and I sold it all off,
That's what happened to his collection. His mother threw it away when she was cleaning the attic. It's too bad. Had a pretty complete collection of stuff. But I don't know. I'm a completist. I was talking to somebody the other day about this. I'll buy a crappy copy just to fill in the holes, with the intention of later I'll go buy a better copy, which sometimes doesn't happen. And then I'll think about my collection. I'm like, oh yeah, I have a complete run of this, and I'll look at it, and there's torn up copies with things out of them. Like maybe they're not. The collection isn't quite up to the snuff that I remember it being. But again, I'm a completist. I like to have it rather than not have it.
Yeah, they're not damaged. They're well loved.
Exactly. They're well loved, dog-eared, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I used to buy comics. There used to be a bookstore in Albany where I grew up, and there was a guy who would sell books. And back in those days, they would tear the logo off and send it back to the distributor. And he had boxes and boxes of this stuff. And I think the first major collection of Thor, none of them had any of the logos on the covers. They were all just torn off,
Yeah.
But hey, I had them, so that was what mattered.
And now, I mean, key books, even like that, I mean, you can get some money for them.
Yeah.
I remember, because I was a comic book dealer in the early 90s, and I remember I had a copy of Spidey 181,
Mm-hmm.
the first Punisher,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way it was. The top was ripped off, and
Yeah.
I couldn't sell that thing for $20.
No.
Nobody wanted
My
that.
favorite thing is, like, I'll go on to eBay and I'll see pages from FF #1 going for $200 or $50. I'm like, what am I going to do? Buy them all and then put them together?
I have seen graded copies of pages. Yeah. Oh, that's insane.
It is. It is.
I don't know what you.
My favorite one is, speaking of the Hulk 180. Well, was it the first Wolverine issue? Right? Was that 181?
Oh yeah, right. Spidey 129 was the first Punisher. 181 was the,
I was collecting a run of Rich Buckler art on Thor, which was one of my favorite runs. I loved Rich Buckler because I'm a big Kirby fan, and Rich Buckler I thought did a great job of imitating Kirby on the FF and on Thor. And so there was an issue that I liked. It was inked by Chick Stone, which I like Chick Stone stuff, and it was going for all this really expensive, and I couldn't figure out why. Why is this? Well, it turns out there was an ad in there for Hulk 181.
Oh,
yeah, so that drove the price up, and I was like, oh my god,
people are crazy.
Ad in there, just do it. So
yeah, that's one of the downsides of I think all the information we have now is I think people know too much now, because you have, like, you're looking up a comic and there's like 4 different variants. There's a price variant. There's ones that are more valuable because of an ad in it, and it's just like, I don't understand it.
Well, I did a book probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And I think you have a copy of it too. It's a collected a horror collection of the not the Eerie. Maybe I have a copy here. Anyway, it's on eBay, marked up by me as a selling point for $400. And I'm like, what? I did sign my name, and I drew a little skull in it. And it says, markup, $400. Was it Creatures? It's the World Famous Creatures book that I did.
Okay, it wasn't that one.
No, it wasn't the Weird collection. It was the World Famous Creatures, with a markup by me, and going for $400. Although I noticed the price dropped to $329 this week, so I've been following it along to see how much people get from my signatures and markups. So I said to me, "You follow your own stuff?" Of course I do. I look at eBay all the time.
Hey,
there's books I have on there that probably go for like $2, and then there's other books that go for much more. So it's all over the map,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. I think creators, until you, I don't know. I was going to say until you get to a certain level or whatever, but until you get a big enough ego, I don't think. And I think for years, like comic creators were like, "What's my signature worth?" They used to sign everything for free. They never charged anybody, and then people started getting money for it.
Well, apparently, like, I've talked to some friends of mine, like Steve Niles, who he was telling me he was at a show, and Neil Adams was telling him, you got to charge for your signature. You got to charge. And he's like, well, I don't feel right charging for the signature. But, I guess it's a way to make, the creators to make some money back. But, if someone's buying your book, it's like, yeah, I'll sign it. I'll do it. I mean, I've seen too at shows where they'll come in with people have like a wagon full of books, and they want you to sign them all, and it's like, oh geez, and you're doing it free, so you're going to be sitting there all day. To name one was Joe Sinnett, used to do the Albany show, and people would come in with piles of these books, and he would just sit there signing them.
He was a super nice guy too, and he would do it.
And people would just take advantage of that. I mean, I don't know. This was weird. This guy had this big pile of books, and he had them in plastic. But then there was a cut in the plastic where he wanted the signature, and it was surrounded by cardboard. And I'm like, I don't get that, but okay.
Yeah. Well, like, I want to remember one thing, but first, the signature thing. Mm-hmm. So the first time I ever saw anybody charge for a signature, I was at a con. I was working the con, selling comics, and Michael Baer was there. I don't know if you might remember Michael Baer, but mm-hmm. he had done, I think maybe issue 2 or 3 of Hellstorm was out. Mm-hmm. So he had done the artwork for that, and they had that first issue that had that special cover that was kind of like this heavy stock, looked almost like brown paper or whatever. And so he, and he was one of those guys that he wouldn't charge. He actually, I'll tell you another story about him, but he, so a guy comes up to him, he's like, hey, would you sign these? They're like, sure. And then he gives him a stack like this, and he's like, all right, I'll sign a couple of these, but after that, I'm gonna charge you. He's like, okay. So he charged them $1, I think, a piece for each one he signed, but it's funny too, because like I had gotten some artwork from him, and I got a couple pieces from him, and he had worked on that Vampirella trading card set, and I had like Jimmy Palmiotti sign some, and he had done the back of one of the card, and the way they did the backs was like there was like 10 of the backs were this artist and 10 was this other artist, and he sat there and he signed everyone. I didn't ask him to. He sat there and signed every one of those on the back, So I was like, it's just funny. But the whole window thing, I had to do that because like it was CBCS, I think they were doing if you send in for a signing from them, you have to do that. You put it in a bag and you have to cut a hole and say, this is, basically that's where you want it signed. It's a big hassle. I only did it once because.
So if you want the signature authorized, is that?
Well, what it was is like, I'm trying to remember the creator now. He had done some Batman, and I'm like, I'm never going to see this guy. I've never seen him at a show. I can't remember his name now, but yeah, you have to, what they did is that they had everybody send books in, then they had him come to the studio and he signed all the books.
Okay.
So yeah, that was what you had to do. You had to like put it in a bag and board, and you had to cut out a window in it so that he knew where to sign or whatever. And
so does it have to be signed in a certain area, I guess, right?
It doesn't matter. It's your preference, so you can do whatever you want. But I guess I don't know. Some people are really particular. I don't see what difference it makes, but
well, I've got a bunch of signed stuff I was thinking about getting graded, and I guess, not all the companies do the signature authorization, right?
Right. CBCS does.
Okay. But what worries me is that some of these guys who signed the thing are so old, their signature doesn't look like when they were younger, and it's probably going to get rejected. It's like, what is this chicken scratching,
I know the companies, have things where now, like, okay, if you send it in and you can say if it's not a 9.8, then don't grade it. And they
Okay.
charge you like $15 or something to look at it, but they don't actually grade it, or something like that.
Hmm.
And so they might have something like that too, where it's like, okay, if you're going to tell me it's not authentic, I mean, it's authentic, but
Right.
yeah, who
Well, I
knows?
mean, I looked at some of that, and I think what turned me off, and maybe it wasn't with the signatures in particular, was some of the grading was based on value, a percentage of the value of the
Oh
grade.
yeah,
And it was like, okay, if I have this book that's really expensive that I want graded, now I have to pay more for the grading because it's worth more,
yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid.
I mean, I've got a copy of Famous Monsters, Dark Shadows issue signed by Basil Gogos and signed by Jonathan Frid that I'd love to get, But then again, I'm too worried about the two things. I mean, I'm sure it's not high value, but, it has some value. But also, if the signatures, they were both older, and I don't know if the signatures will match what currently would be considered their signatures,
Yeah, it's hard to say. It depends on their database they have, I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. Interesting though. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't had a ton of stuff graded. Um, did mostly through CBCS because everything I had graded had signatures on it,
Mhm.
pretty much.
Hmm.
Um, so I did a copy of Batman 500. I should show this sometime. Um, and it's signed by 6 different creators.
Mhm.
And so it costs you to grade it. It costs you $25 for the first authentication of the signature, and then 15 for each additional authenticated signature.
Okay.
So it was an expensive graded comic.
Well, that's what always gets me is if I'm buying books to fill in holes, you're paying usually about $100 more just for the grading.
Yeah.
I mean, I've bought books that were graded and I took the plastic off and tossed it away. Well, I can't have one graded book in the collection, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, my go-to collection is Fantastic Four Kirby stuff, right? Followed by John Byrne's run and a couple of other runs. But, now that I have that all done, I'm looking at getting it graded, and it's like, the cost is going to be astronomical, for 100 issues or 104 issues of Kirby's run, and not to mention the rest,
Yeah. And like you said, the older books are just like, I have one older Batman I got graded. It was just kind of on a lark.
Mhm.
It was one of my books that was in better shape, but it's not like a key book or anything.
Mm.
And other books I looked at, I'm like, I don't want to spend this kind of money trying to get these things graded.
Well, you're doing a Kickstarter now, and I've seen Kickstarters where they will do the grading as one of the levels of a graded
Yep.
copy of the book, which is an interesting concept to do. I don't think I've seen it lately. I think it was a couple of years ago. I don't know if people are still doing it. Some of that stuff will come in fashion and out of fashion. And,
Yeah.
you know,
I had one. You mentioned it. I had actually had one.
mhm.
Graham Nolan for Joe Frankenstein. I think he did it for both of them. He might have done it for another one too. It just seems like another headache on top of things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're dealing with multiple artists and mailing and things signed, and you know,
Yeah.
that's the thing with anthologies is particularly is I did Shriek anthology 2 issues, and dealing with different artists. I mean, unfortunately, everybody I dealt with was pretty good, but it's like juggling cats. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
can
Yeah.
you get it in on time? Do I need to ship this here? Do I need to ship that there?
Yeah.
I need to ship you books. I need you. How many books do you want? I have to order these books. And so, yeah, it's just a lot to juggle around. The rule of thumb is with an anthology, you can do pretty well because you got 10 people, and then they get 10 friends and their friends. And so, but the headache you have to deal with of dealing with all these people sometimes can be tough.
Yeah. I don't know. Like if I wanted to get it signed, I'd be sending this thing all over the world.
Mhm.
My book because I got somebody from you know, Ecuador, guy from Argentina, there's a guy from Russia, so I'm like,
Right. Oh,
and then some of the stuff I've heard stories where you send stuff to these places and they never make it there,
well, I used to deal with people in Brazil. I did a couple of books with Marcelo Trom, who did the Infinite Punishment, and he he lived in Brazil and Palo Alto, and I would have to send stuff to him, and finding the codes and it was just a whole learning curve to do it, and this was years ago. Now it's like so expensive. You really, most creators now who are in the States don't even think about doing overseas.
Yeah.
The thing though with overseas is I've always done well with selling original art overseas, France and a couple of other places. So I'm debating about doing that again, but just making sure I'm charging enough. My first Kickstarter, I did 12 by 18 prints. I did T-shirts. And all this crazy shipping stuff. Oh my God, I still have a box of T-shirts upstairs because it's just, I should have shipped them free. But, you can't ship all that stuff together because the box would be huge.
Right.
Talking old time shipping charges, not even new time shipping charges. Now you would have to take a second mortgage to get half of that stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, I spent on one book, I think the book was 25. This was coming from the UK. This was a couple years ago, maybe like a year or so ago. And it was $40 for shipping,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's more than the book. I mean, it's almost twice as much as the book, so it's insane. Yeah.
Well, media mail is a pretty good option. It's a lot less, but there was a period where the post office, some post offices weren't accepting comics because they consider it, there's advertising in it. And so supposedly with media mail, if there's an ad in it, it doesn't qualify for media mail.
Right.
But since the prices have gone up, they've sort of gotten lax with that. So now I think pretty much everybody's kind of using it and there hasn't been an issue.
Yeah. And then I mean, I don't know about you, but my comic doesn't have any ads in it, so it would qualify.
Yeah, I didn't have any either, and they kicked it out and said, it's a comic, we can't do it, And so fortunately, I used Pitney Bowes for shipping, and they just said, okay, you got to pay an extra, whatever, $3 or something, and just charge my account because they had a card on file. I've used other shipping where, it was sent back to me and then I had to contact them and, hey, I'm sorry you didn't get it on time and I have to ship it to you again and pay the postage again. And, so, but I did learn, with the T-shirts, I was watching somebody's, listening to somebody's podcast about creation a couple of weeks ago. And they're saying rule number 1, never create T-shirts for your own creation because nobody will buy them. And sure enough, I have a box of them upstairs that I can't give away because no one's ever heard of it, or so it's like, okay, well, lesson learned. I wish I learned that lesson years ago.
What? I haven't looked at how many the Fund My Comic sold in T-shirts. I'm off the top of my head, I'm going to guess maybe 4 or 5. So it's not a ton.
Design, and it's pretty cool in a way. It's generic enough that you could get away with it, but
right.
I'm Margot Intergalactic Trash Collector, and like people are like, "Who the hell is that? Why would I spend $20 on a T-shirt for that?" Right. And everybody wants black T-shirts now. I ordered white.
Yeah, white was probably cheaper, right? So.
Yeah, I think it's special, and now I'm thinking of setting up at a show and just giving them away. Maybe
right?
They're just
maybe
up a room in my closet. Get them
with every purchase. With every purchase, get a free T-shirt, right?
Exactly.
Speaking of Margot, let's just go back to. So obviously, you're a monster kid. You're a comic kid. Mm-hmm. At what point were you like? I want to make comics, and maybe from where you decided you wanted to make comics, and then what happened after that? How long it took you to get from I want to do this to actually doing it?
Well, I think I knew I always wanted to draw comics because even when I was a kid, I would, my relatives would buy me these probably Silver Age books that are worth a fortune now, and I would cut them up and I would make them fight each other. You know, I think I had a FF-25 with a Hulk and the Thing, and I cut them all out and had them fighting each other. You know, but I would draw constantly, and you know, my older uncle, brother, we would stay up late and, you know, watch horror movies and draw all night, you know, and I would just keep drawing and drawing and say, hey, what do you think of this? And what do you think if I sent this to Stan Lee? And he would say, I think he'd tell you to buy a dog. I was like, why was that? He said, if you want appreciation, buy a dog. So I was just banging away on it. And I something I always wanted to do. And I did get into doing it, but it was kind of a weird way around. I kind of had to go around. So I decided to, in high school, I had gone to BOCES and I was going to be a plumber. And I just like, you know what? My father was like, no, you want to be an artist, go be an artist. So I applied down to School of Visual Arts in New York City, and which used to be the comic book, I don't know, I think it was called Comic Book Institute or the Comic Book College or something back in the 40s and 50s. And then it became the School of Visual Art, which a lot of guys went to that were golden age artists. And so I got accepted there and I moved down to New York. And I first started out, I put a little comic together, Xerox, and I would go over to St. Mark's Comics and the guy would sell it for me. And, you know, that was fun. And then eventually I got a job doing wrestling magazines.
Oh, nice.
I did Wrestling Eye for a number of years. And we started a magazine called Wow Women of Wrestling. And I know that there's actually a league like that. I don't know how the trademarks or whatever worked out. It wasn't my company, but I did design the logos and stuff. And this was the day when you had, you know, waxing and cutting, and you would send stuff out to have the type spec'd, and you would get the type back. And then eventually computers came in. So I talked this publisher into letting me do a horror magazine because I was a big horror fan and I wanted to do something so along the lines of Famous Monsters. And I got together with this fellow, Mark Gibson, and we created Slaughterhouse magazine.
Okay.
5 issues of that. And our take on it was that we were the irreverent horror magazine, you know?
Nice.
And we would just do whatever we wanted to do. We had a ton of fun doing it, you know? And I actually met a bunch of people through that. I got connected with Fanico because they were a big advertiser in Fangoria at the time. Fangoria was the #1 horror magazine. And then also one day I came into work and there was this set of Clive Barker Books of Blood lithographs on my desk. And it was from Steve Niles, who was just getting into the industry, and he was looking for some press, and he sent me that. And I called him up and we hit it off. And he got me my first professional job illustrating his story. And it was by Eclipse, and it was in probably, oh God, here I'll date myself, 1985, 86. And for a couple of years, we went down to San Diego together. And I probably did about 10 stories of his over the course of those. Recently, Scab, we just republished, I think about not last year, but the year before. And so, yeah, my first professional story published was through Eclipse Comics. It was in a book called Daughter of Fly in My Eye. It was a John Muth cover. And
what was the name of it again?
Daughter of Fly in My Eye.
Okay.
So he was putting out this book called Fly in My Eye, and each issue would have a different play on the Fly in My Eye thing.
Okay.
There was a cover of a giant eye with these little girls standing in front of it. It was painted by John Muth, and it was called Fly in My Eye. And it was a Cal McDonald story. It was the first one he had done, called Big Head. And I illustrated it. And I remember he had promised me I was going to get a page rate. And I had gone to Jan Mulaney, who lived not too far from me in the city. I think it was in Staten Island or something. And I said, yeah, Steve promised me this page rate. And he almost dropped dead. He's like, what? We don't pay that for guys who aren't professionals, but they paid me anyway. And ended up hiring me to work at some of the Greenberg conventions in over across from the Madison Square Garden. I would go there, work the table for him, and help him out with stuff. And so, yeah, that was my first professional story printed.
Wow. Eclipse Comics. So I knew Eclipse from when I was younger and stuff. I had picked up things here and there, but recently, over the last maybe 5 years, is when I picked up a ton of their, like, was it Tales of Terror and um, I'm trying to remember the other one. I keep thinking of Twisted Tales, but that wasn't them.
That was Pacific.
Alien Encounters. That was the other one.
Right.
Yeah. There's lots of great stuff, and a lot of like up and coming. Chuck Dixon wrote stories for them, and I'm trying to think of who else. Norm Breyfogle. I've got one where he did the lettering in it. So.
Well, that also tied into they were doing Clive Barker stuff, and Steve was doing Clive Barker stuff through Eclipse at the time, and then eventually between Steve and Eclipse and Fanico, I ended up doing stuff for Clive Barker too. I did a couple of books, and actually ran his fan club for a while. I met this guy Mike Brown, who Clive had sanctioned to do his fan club. So he had contacted me when I was doing the horror magazine and asked if I was interested in helping him, design this fan club. And we called it The Breed because it was,
Yep.
And so we did this whole thing where we put out, monthly magazine, a little folded 8.5 by 11 offset printing thing that we did. And I see them on eBay now. I'm like, oh my God. But again, I keep track of everything I ever did on eBay. So, yeah, that was good. It was a lot of fun. And we had Clive come to our booth. We set up a booth at the Fangoria shows, and he came and he signed and he would do stuff with us. And, yeah, that was, got to work with him for a while. And then, doing stuff at Eclipse was great. And yeah, so that was sort of how I got in. I sort of went around the long way and turned down by a couple of the major companies. I won't get into that story. I've already complained on other podcasts about that.
A lot of people have had those same experiences, I'm sure. So,
yeah. Well, it was Todd McFarlane was saving all his rejection slips, I think.
That's great. Hey, use it to motivate you. That's
sure.
Yeah. So, at what point are you like, hey, I'm going to do my own comic now? I'm I've got enough. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to try this.
Well, I did a 4-issue series for Fanico with Kevin Eastman. It was a continuation of Zombie War 2. And so we sort of, Tom, who owns Fanico, and then Kevin, and then came up with a general plot. And I drew the covers and he inked the covers and he colored them. And so I ran through sort of Marvel method, it was a little even simpler than Marvel method. Sort of I had a free reign to kind of do what I want. And, that kind of got my juices going to say, hey, I really like to do something, as being a fan of like Kirby stuff, I always wanted to do a series like that. So sort of like my Margot series is sort of a tribute to that in a way. And I still do horror stuff. I have a series called Lady Dracula, which is based on Dracula's daughter, and it takes place in an upstate town. And so I'm trying to develop the series where everything takes place in this upstate town called King's Forge, and it's a cursed town. And since growing in upstate New York, I really want to reference a lot of the things that are up here and using that as a background for the story. And so sort of the stories always sort of come back to this place because it's got a sort of an attraction, a magnetic quality in the dark arts that are there because it's cursed. And sort of not quite a gate to hell, I would say, but Dracula's buried there and has a long history of killing the native people, and just a lot of blood is going into the ground there. So I'm exploring that and continuing the Margot book, and so I get to do horror stuff over here, and then I get to do more, comic-y. Not, I really am not interested in superheroes anymore.
Mhm.
I don't even well, I was going to say I don't really buy them, but I do. I just recently just bought a bunch of. I'll show you later. But it depends on what it is too. I'm a bit more particular, particularly with how the price of books these days.
Yeah.
But I like being able to jump genre to genre. The problem is that in today's comic world, you really need to brand yourself with, I think, with one title. And I have this habit of jumping around all over the place, which doesn't suit doing that. So it's kind of like, who, what, where? Jim who? I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, I think it's tough too. I mean, because like especially with the way I always say the wheels of independent comics move slowly, because especially if you're a guy that's doing everything,
Yeah.
and
Well, I do the lettering, the inking. Well, the lettering is, I could form it out, but the coloring is a hit or miss. And to my mind, coloring has become just as much a part of the artwork as drawing it.
Yep.
And I've hired people where I'm like, they just don't get it. And then I've hired other people and they did an incredible job because they were really talented and got super famous and the rates went up so high.
And you can't afford them.
I was like, oh, it's good to work with you.
Constantly looking for that good creator that's not so expensive.
Well, I always like working with people starting out because especially if they're talented and they have some drive to do something,
Yeah.
And I mean, I like collaborating. I think it's a great way to learn and do something different and take you out of your wheelhouse,
Mm-hmm.
So every once in a while I get this urge where I got to collaborate with somebody, and I'm doing that with the Lady Dracula thing. I have a friend who I work with on the first couple of segments, and he's really good with dialogue and helped me with the writing a little bit, but unfortunately he's not great on deadlines and doesn't want to deal with deadlines. So I'm like, all right, that's fine, just help me out here, so bringing in a different sensibility, I think, is really good. It kind of takes you out of your, like I said, out of your wheelhouse and expand what you're doing a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously I don't have anywhere near the experience that you have, but just from doing the one book, to be able to work with all the different people I worked with on it, and I can't say anything negative about any of the people. I didn't run into any real problems with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
People work differently, people react, differently or whatever, but people have different ideas. Sometimes I was like, this is the way I want it. Sometimes it was, you know what, I'll trust you. You do what you think, and then they'll come back with something amazing, and I'm just like, okay.
Well, I mean, I've worked with scripts from writers where they're just like, here's what I want on the page, go to town.
Right.
And unless there's something blaringly bad, it's fine. I've worked with other people who are very specific,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that, and it's like, well, I don't know. Then it becomes a question of how much do you want to bend to what they're doing, and that's kind of like why I like the outlet of doing my own stuff.
Yep.
It's because that's really what I always wanted to do. I always really wanted to do my own stuff. But again, going back and working with other people, it's really, I think, as an artist, whether it's your writing or your lettering or whatever you're doing, it really helps to expand and to learn too. It's like that they say. I was thinking about this the other day. It was like, I like to read before I go to bed, and I'm like, well, should I read comics or should I read a book?
Right.
Well, the advice I get is for writers and people who are doing comics, don't always read comics. Read something else, because bring in those outside influences. But, I just got a whole bunch of new comics. I really want to read them.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have the wall or the box of shame like I do, where it's like, oh yeah, I've had these. I literally went to a show, and this guy's trying to sell me, an indie guy trying to sell me some of his books, and I'm like, and I look down and I'm like, I literally bought that last year at this show, and I still haven't read it yet. So nothing against him, but I just didn't read it yet.
My box of PDF comics that I
Oh,
have
geez.
on my desktop is just full of books that I haven't read, and
Yeah.
it's just unnatural to me to read PDF format because I grew up reading books, you know, and so for me to sit there and focus on the PDF, or I mean, it's a little more natural on the phone than the desktop, but still, even that is, I do have been experimenting with design work on doing, because I did some books on global comics, and they're really good about setting it up where you can go in and you can separate your panels and have it go vertical, right? And so I like that aspect, and I've been looking for a program that I could do that with PDFs, but it just doesn't exist unless I do, so doing a digital book in that format, most places want you to subscribe, and you're in a library on the bookshelf there next to Vogue, and it's like, no, I don't think that's what I really want to do, and I got to pay to be up there. But they do have a good system for getting your book online in that format. But again, reading PDF stuff is just not natural to me. I mean, I do Kickstarter PDFs. I send them out. People obviously read them, and I think it's an age thing.
It is, yeah. And I wouldn't say I have on occasion read PDF comics. I do have some that I bought that I haven't read, but I do a comic book cover of the day on Twitter, and that kind of forces me to go. I go to Comic Book Plus, and I did go to Digital Comic Museum, but their site was just so slow. I couldn't deal with it. But and I'll look for a cover, and then after I look for the cover, I'll start going through the book because I started posting a page from inside too. And then sometimes I post an ad from the book if it's a cool ad or whatever.
How do you buy the book, or just screenshot it?
No, it's just a PDF.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it's all public domain. So, that's gotten me more recently to actually read, because you'll see something, you're like, oh, this looks really good. Let me read. Maybe it's an anthology book and you read one of the stories or something. And that's how I got into posting the romance panels every day, because I was reading through, and then you start reading these things, and they're like, these are crazy, and I'm sure you're well aware of the Kirby ones, but I had never really read any Kirby romance, and I'm like, oh my god, the amount of action in this romance book compared to other romance books I had read is incredible. I mean, like the one story I read was all about. It was a romance story, but it was about gangsters and somebody breaking into the place and
gangsters into everything. It was always somehow there were a terrible turban was always in there from you guys, right? I don't know if you ever read that, but
no.
I think it was.
That was great stuff. It's great stuff. But I do like the two things I like about it is especially this old stuff. It's someplace where you can look at it. You can read it if you want to. It's not going to cost you anything, or I donate to the sites, but, and that stuff could live on,
Yeah.
And then as far as new stuff, I offer a digital copy, you offer digital copies. It gives people an option instead of paying $25-$30 for shipping,
Right. Well, a lot of people not a lot of people, but with the decline of comic book stores, have really started to rely on remote areas to read comics. It's the only option is get a PDF.
Right.
I mean, I have considered myself subscribing to Marvel or something I mean, you go in, you buy a $5 comic now. I think I just got a facsimile edition of was it the first appearance of the Black Panther? I think I bought it when it was $3.99. Now it's $4.99. And I was, but you can buy, you go in for $20. I used to be able to go in and come out with a giant handful of books, and now I come out with 2 or 3.
Yeah.
before, at $5 each. But I consider doing subscriptions, but the other problem with that is how often, for myself, how often do I read PDFs? And the second thing is a lot of stuff doesn't get released until a couple of months after, which doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's like, well, if you're doing this format, why not release it within the same week or a week, the next week after, instead of waiting a couple of months later to release this stuff?
Yeah. And they were doing at one point they were doing it where if you bought the physical copy, you get the digital for free or something.
Right. Scan in the thing, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, I understand probably some of the logic has to do with store owners thinking that it cuts into their business. But I think if you have people who are reading PDFs anyway, they're not going to be coming into your store to buy too much as is, But that's as markets grown with different segments, now you have digital. Now, I mean, back in the day there wasn't that crazy collecting, and there was no way to sell collecting books. I mean, I used to go when I was a kid. The back of the books had a little ad for Robert Bell, and he would send me a Xerox list of comics that was typed up and often crossed out and marked up. And in wintertime, I would go out and shovel sidewalks and driveways and send him money and wait 2 months to get the comic back,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm dating myself. But,
Well, I just know I always had comics around, It was something, for whatever reason, maybe because it was cheap at the time or whatever. My mom always made sure she knew I liked them. I always had comics. If she would go to a garage sale, she would bring me home comics if she found any. She would come home sometimes with boxes of comics. So, and then the one time she came home with a box of horror magazines, and after she looked through a few of those, she's like, "Nope." So I never did get those horror. It was like Witches. I remember one was Witches was the title. Those black and white. I was just like, oh.
Well, I started reading comics at an early age, and in kindergarten, they had remarked to my mother that my vocabulary was really good. They didn't know; they wanted to know where I got it from. I think I called one of the kids a cretin or something, and I was like, "Yeah, a comic book. That's where I got it," And as far as like the horror stuff, I mean, they used to sell. Every store had comics and magazines. And as a matter of fact, I was in Walmart yesterday and I just looked at their magazine section and went, I was like, what happened? But we would go to this drugstore and he would always put the magazines like Creepy Eerie in the back because they were more adult, and we would always like looking. Is he looking? Yeah,
always looking for the Vampirella with the nude.
Exactly. Right.
Yep.
Get it home and hide it under the bed or something.
Oh shoot. So I got to ask you this too.
Yeah.
This has come around again, and it's kind of appropriate for you but the whole what's more important in comics, writers or artists? And since you're both, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm a visual person, and what attracted me was the artwork. And, growing up, if the artwork was good, I could overlook a bad story, But, bad artwork, I just can't get into the story at all. The door closes. I think what's happened, though, is it used to be all that way for artists were the main selling point. And now I think that's changed because there isn't any consistency anymore. Back in the 60s and even the 70s, an artist would stay on a book for years. And now an artist, if you get up 6 issues out of them, you're lucky. I mean, I noticed some of the DC books I buy now. I was buying Absolute Wonder Woman because I love the interior artwork. And when that artist is not doing it, they do the cover, but not the interior, right? So what happens to me, in my mind, is that, okay, I can't count on the artist being there from month to month, but the writer will be there from month to month, right? So I can follow the writer from whatever they're doing. So I think that it has become more, the writers have become just as important, if not more important, for consistency, because floppies are basically serials, and so you want that consistency from month to month. And if you're not getting it in the artist, you're going to get it in the writer. And and if you get into that artist, that writer's work, you're going to follow them. And there's still a lot of people who will follow the artists and stuff, but I think it's created this whole appreciation of the writers, particularly with people like Alan Moore, and Frank Miller being, I enjoy Frank Miller's writing, well, 80s stuff anyway, but I think that's opened the door for the writers too, where they used to take the back seat to the artists. And I think because of that inconsistency of having the same artists every month, people have turned to the writers.
Yep. I agree with you. I think, like, General Akbar, it's a trap, I mean, to me, you need them both, but
yeah, that's the thing. I'm reading right now. I like reading Giger,
okay.
And it's because of
is that Jeff Johns?
Yeah, Gary Frank artwork, and they do a couple of fill-in issues, and I've got the fill-in issue, and I was like, oh crap, here we go. The artist is leaving, and they're asking me to buy this other artist, and it's not the same, and it's like, okay, back on the new issue. So I guess he just needed a break,
There you go.
But
it happens to the best of them.
But as long as it's the same team, I'll keep buying the book. But when they start moving things around, and what's happened with artists is they don't want to work for Marvel or DC, for a company that's character driven, because they can't create and they don't own anything. And, there's this drive to create their own stuff that they own. And I understand that. But as a reader and a collector, I want that consistency,
Yeah. Well, yeah. What I was just watching a Chuck Dixon video, and he said that art gets people in the door, but the writer keeps them there. Keeps them coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I kind of agree with that. I forgot what else I was going to say.
Well, a lot of people trash Stan Lee, as and I think he would go on, but it was the dialogue that the combination of the two. It's like when those two things come together and they work, they work well.
Yep.
And so you can't, say, well, I don't know about his publishing issues or whatever. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts and posts about his work with Ditko and why Ditko left, and he wasn't getting the credit he deserved. And this one didn't get the credit he deserved. And this didn't happen, and, for a while I was very anti Stan Lee, and, my daughter I have a daughter. She was like, "Oh, your dad likes comics. Does he like Stan Lee?" And she'd be like, "No, we're not a Stan Lee house." As a matter of fact, when the first Spider-Man came out, I wrote a Entertainment Weekly was coming out as a magazine, right? And they had a Spider-Man thing about Spider-Man coming out, and they credited Stan Lee for all of it. And I wrote a letter in saying, Kirby designed this, that, this covers this, that, so your credits, all wrong. And they published it, which was fun. I don't know if I still have the issue, but years later, reading those books, a lot of that dialogue was good. I mean, It was corny now when I read it back, but it worked for what it was and what it did, And he had to sell. I mean, these guys were making a living. It wasn't a hobby that they did on the weekends. And, it was like, if you didn't produce, you didn't get paid, and you didn't feed your family. So I'm currently reading. Someone lent me this cryptology book. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No.
Two Tomorrows. And so there's a big Don Heck interview.
Oh, nice.
when I was a kid growing up, I'd buy the Kirby cover and then see Don Heck's work inside and go, oh no.
Like I got ripped off.
He did a lot of horror stuff, and this covers basically that, which I wasn't even aware of that he did. So it's an interesting read. I think it's the second issue of Cryptology, and so there's a whole thing in here about he created sort of there was a run of books where they did the close-up profiles for the cover.
Yeah, I discovered them digging for my comic book cover of the day. I'm like, wow, Don Heck did a lot, because I wasn't as familiar with him. I knew him.
He did a lot of stuff that, and going back, I mean, I started looking at some of the Iron Man stuff he did in Tales of Suspense, and the Tony Stark faces. He really did a good job on those. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the Kirby traumatic, the powerful layouts, but he did make them look sort of like Errol Flynn, in a way, and it sort of had this feel to it that worked, right?
Yeah,
I appreciate it when I was younger. I mean, that's happened to me as you create comics, you begin to appreciate what other people did that you didn't appreciate when you were a kid buying the books. And it's kind of like when you start creating books, you start looking at comic books differently too. I can't look at a book the same I did when I was a kid, because I'm like, okay, what went into this? Look what the artist did here. Why is this lettering over there? Why didn't they do this? And sometimes I have to, I'll get lost in reading the comic and I'll forget all of that and get into the magic of it. But I'll get drawn back into, look at this. Or this is so great. I love this.
That's
this.
This is what I see a lot is a fan will pick up a book and be like, wow, look at that double page spread. And an artist will pick up the book and they'll find a picture of, I don't know, somebody in a suit, and they'll be like, oh, look at the wrinkles in that jacket. It's like, it's completely different,
Yeah. Well, that's why I like it. A lot of artists will recommend, and a lot of people will recommend taking life courses to draw, like learn those wrinkles, learn how wrinkles work, learn how folds work, and drawing from life,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Don't learn from comics.
To me, there's a distinction between an illustrator and a cartoonist. And I actually, as far as my comic work, I consider myself a cartoonist, not an illustrator. I remember in the 70s, there was this whole Neil Adams. A lot of people were into Neil Adams and the Batman run and the look of making it look as real as possible.
Right.
And, I don't know. I was still in my Kirby. It's got to be like powerful and that sort of image where the image just strikes you in a certain way. And so I was not a big Neil Adams fan. I appreciated his stuff, but I always felt like illustrations were the covers or book covers rather than the comics that I enjoyed reading most. And as you start getting into creating books and comics and sequential art in particular, start going back to guys like Alex Toth and Steve Ditko, who strip everything down to the bare essentials, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the storytelling and what works for the story and what doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, it gets thrown out,
Right.
All that throwing the, you got to kill your babies. Right?
Yep.
It's like I go through old artwork and I'm like, oh, I really love this part, but it doesn't help the story. So I got to kill my baby. I got to kill it. I got to throw it out. And it's hard. It is because you love your own stuff. Like, this is so cool. Wait till they see this. Oh. And then
I see artists get lost in that now where because they're doing digital art and they can zoom in and they can spend 20 minutes drawing this tiny little thing that nobody's ever going to see because once you zoom out and print it, it's like nobody cares.
Oh yeah, I had that issue because I do a lot of my inking and coloring. Although I do both, not the coloring, but the inking and my start out as pencil sketches. I scan them in and then I bring them in and I will either ink them on a large board. I'll print out blue lines and ink that, or I'll bring it into Clip Studio Paint and ink it. And so what's happened is that if I'm zooming in, my point of my digital pen will go down to like 2 point, okay? But in another panel, the smallest line is at 9 point. And then in another panel, it's at 12 point. And then in another panel, it's at 5 point. So there's no consistency in the artwork anymore, right?
Yeah.
So what I've had to do is set my limitations on the smallest I'll go down to at, say, 12 point. You know, I have zoomed in and I have done detail and zoomed out, and it won't even be noticeable. And a lot of times what I'll do now is zoom out and just start erasing what you can't see and what doesn't work, because per size, right? But if your line consistency is not the same, then there's no consistency through the story through. And I mean, you know, doing whether it's a 5-page story or a 20-page story, the consistency is the most important. It's like watching a movie and they change directors in the middle of the movie. It doesn't work, you know? Right. And you lose the reader. And as a sequential artist, losing the reader is the worst sin you can commit, because they're going to come back. Once that guy's reading it and he goes, hey, look at that artwork, it's really not that good. That's it. They're out of the story. You've lost them, you know?
Or just little things like, you know, the whole leading the eye thing, and then where you'll get some wonky panel or something, it just doesn't flow right, and you're like, and then you're just like, okay, you're out of it, you know. Yeah. But you mentioned not putting things, you know, leaving out what you don't need, or and I like Joe Kubert and guys like in Buscema. You could see, you'd look at a picture and like, wow, that's a great picture of Conan next to a mountain. And then you look and you're like, half that mountain's not even there, you know? But he knew enough to say, this is the mountain, you're going to fill it in, you know, your brain will fill in the rest.
Well, the eye, I mean, we have a set pattern of things that we recognize. So the way we see is we take in little details. We don't actually take in the whole detail. So we scan. We're all scanned, right? We scan something like, oh, I recognize that. Move on. I recognize that. You know, it's why you can take out certain letters. I mean, maybe it's vowels or something out of an alphabet, and you can still read out of a word, and you can still read the word, because basically you're scanning, right? And so, you know, it's the same with a visual art. You know, I see a line up like this and down and a couple of things, and there's a mountain. Right? Or I see a circle with a line across and 2 dots, there's a face, right? So basically you know what it is. So, you know, and I'm not saying go that simple, but simplifying, because, you know, and I did this too. I had to tend to overcomplicate what I was doing, and it just confuses the eye because there's so much going on. You know, it's like having digital TV now. To me, I look at the digital TV or sports, and the background and the foreground are all in focus. There's no foreground in focus, background out of focus anymore, right? So my eye gets confused. I look at it, I'm like, this doesn't seem right to me, you know? And so it's the same with having too much detail in your artwork. It's like, am I focusing on the character? Am I focusing on the background? Am I focusing on this? And it becomes too much, particularly when you're trying to tell a story. And to strip down to those story essentials are basically the lessons I'm reading back through Toth stuff and Dick Coast stuff and guys who influence them. You know, it's stripped down. You know, Toth has a thing where it's like, draw what's necessary only, and then ink the hell out of it, you know.
And all the inkers cursed him for that one, right?
Well, he would ink his own stuff mostly, and you know, he was a great master of blocking out blacks too, you know, so that it became only what's essential.
Right. Yeah, I do hear that now from guys that have been in the business for a while and ink themselves. You know, whereas before, when they were working for Marvel or DC or whoever, their pencils would be really tight. Now that they're inking their own stuff is loose. They go in and they finish it all with the inks.
Yeah, it's, you know, as a guy who wants to be the next Neil Adams or Jack Kirby or whatever, we tend to drawing all that detail. And I mean, I grew up liking Kirby Ink by Sinet. That was my favorite. And the lines were so tight and the detail was so tight. It's like, that's how I drew. Right. But I find, it's really creative and that's why guys warm up where you can just start flowing. And the accidents sometimes they're not an accident, but they're actually more what you wanted than when you sat there, trying to push it to be something,
Right.
And so sort of what they call a creative id. It comes out of the creative id.
Right. Yep.
Flows out when you're open to it,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we've been going for a little over an hour. I don't know if you have a hard stop or anything you got going on or.
No, what time is it? Oh, it's still early yet.
8:45.
Is anybody here?
I don't see anybody in the chat. Let's see.
There's 2 people. Is that you and me?
I don't know. Do you have it up?
I do. It just says 2 people. That's all it says.
People will watch the replay.
That's right.
It's funny the shorts that I have been doing, and I accidentally took a couple of weeks off.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the one I got over 1,000 views on.
Wow.
I mean, I'm like, that's cool. People, I would happen to tune into another stream and a guy was on there. I don't know what's going on. I put my short out and I'm only getting 2,000 views. I'm like, I was excited when I got 1,000.
That's sort of like growth stuff, right? I mean, I get these marketing emails all the time. Get 30,000 subscribers, get my course. And it's like,
yeah,
I'm not interested in 30,000 subscribers who don't, maybe only 5 of them really care.
Yeah. That's my thing. I'm like, I'd rather scrape for the few I get and know that they're interested.
Exactly. I don't want to be the clickbait master. I just want people who actually care about what I'm doing, right? And so I do a lot of stuff on Substack, and my growth has been slow. And I noticed that it's 1 or 2 a day, maybe 1 or 2 a week, but it's steady. And so things, and then of course, when somebody unsubscribes, I cry myself to sleep at night. Oh God, who are they? Let me look them up. What's the problem? I'm gonna send them a nasty letter. No, I don't do that.
Well, Keith Champagne, I talked to him at a show one time. He goes, I mentioned one of his Substacks he sent, and I was like, oh yeah, I read that. That was really good, And he's like, oh, I'm glad somebody's reading. He goes, all I do is I send it out and I sit there and I wait for all the unsubscribes to roll in, I'm just like,
right. Well, I brought my own subscribers, but it's been steady growth. I think I was up to, I don't know, what is it, 600 or almost 600. And, I went on there. I probably had under 400, and it's slow growth, but what was amazing this week is I didn't get any new subscribers and 3 people unsubscribed, but my open rate was close to 80%.
Nice.
Which I've never had.
Amazing.
30%, or
yeah.
5%. And that's considered good. So, I know the people that I'm emailing these things to are reading it. Unfortunately, the people on Substack is maybe 1 or 2, but that's okay. And many of them are subscribers anyway, so I can't really say, they do subscribe. And I don't charge for the subscriptions because,
yeah, it's like it's marketing too. So yeah.
Well, I don't feel, I can commit to doing something like a Patreon where I've got to produce something every month for people. I understand, and I do support Patreons, but, I don't feel like I'm, everything that I do of this marketing or whatever takes time away from me at the drawing board. So it's like, okay, the more I add on, and I've actually been on Substack, serializing my Margot series, first couple of issues, which I'll cut and paste them. Oh, well, that lettering's not right. Oh, this is not right. Oh, and then it becomes a whole nother job that I've got to do. And again, more time away from doing something new,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I've seen everybody struggles with that when you go back and look at the first stuff you did and you're like, and then you want to get in there and fix it. I don't know. How do you just, I mean, obviously you're going back and fixing it. How do you decide to like, is there a point where you're like, let's just let it ride? Cause you know,
No,
and let me move on to something else.
I'm usually pretty good with that. And I used to be a musician and I would record in the studio, and it was fast because it was like, okay, here's exactly what I want. I got it the first couple of times, I'm out of here. I didn't spend a lot of time going.
It costs money to be in the studio too. So
it costs money, but and here's the thing that gets me is, there's a rule for independent publishers is publish it often, publish it once, publish it often. So you have a book, you have a property, keep it in circulation, keep publishing it under different places, different formats, whatever. Because, you do a Kickstarter where you have 180 people maybe see your book.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty small audience. How many people haven't seen your book,
Right.
So, I'm currently doing this now with, I have going to be publishing the first 3 issues of Margot. And, the first book was done 10 years ago. And I'm looking at it going, holy cow, who was that guy? And again, what I know now, I didn't know then, some of the artwork takes you right out of the story because it doesn't work. And so I'm having to go in and fix it. And, but again, I'm not a kind of person who likes to go back and do stuff over again, but I need, I don't need to, but I'm going to keep this in circulation, published in different formats and different companies. And so this will probably be, aside from Kickstarter and Fanico, it'll be, again, a third publisher will pick it up and it'll be done again. All right. So, yeah, I mean, all of these things that you have, like when you get done with your book, next time you do a Kickstarter, there's something you can offer for as one of your pledge levels, right? So the thing has a life of its own and it keeps going. I have a friend who keeps bugging me, like, I haven't seen any new Margot in a long time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm working on it. He's like, yeah, you say that every time I see you. And I'm like, yeah, I am working on it, but there's this old thing back here that's got to keep coming out that I got to keep doing.
So, and I've seen guys do this where they're, creating their own book. They've been putting it out for a bit and they decide, hey, I can keep doing it this way and put out whatever, an issue a year, 2 issues a year or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or I can get another creator to come on board to do whatever. I would assume it'd be the art, right? Mm-hmm. To do the art for the book.
Right.
Do you ever think about that? Like, then I could put out more, or no, you just...
Well, I think about it, but as I said before, I think that the particularly the coloring are just as much a part of my art now as the inking and the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see myself getting someone to letter. That would probably be a time saver, but then I also don't get to make any changes at the last minute that I want to do, I also do layout, so I do all the layout too. But there's a saying, no one cares about your stuff as much as you do, and they never will. So like I said, I've worked with artists who, either they don't get it or it's like, I'm only working for this rate. So here's, what you get. So, yeah, I care more about it than anyone else ever will. And, so, and I want each time it's done to be good. So, I will go back and fix things, but, there are things that I don't want to do. I don't want to do marketing. Unfortunately, you don't have any choice these days. I mean, If you're an artist, you're out there on social media, you got to market yourself. Otherwise, it's like, I sit there and I wait for the email signups to roll in, and they don't. And, it's not like the old days where, you just, big names do. Big name, if you're, you're Kevin Eastman or Bendis or somebody, people are going to sign up. But if you're not, you've got to go out and beat the pavement. There's no middlemen anymore. You know, there's nobody out there to promote your book, and most places that publish your book aren't going to promote it anyway. That's your job now, and so
Right.
is
Yep.
there, do it. You know,
Yeah.
so you got to take the time away. I try to schedule a little bit every week. I do a post on every 2 weeks on Substack. I try not to do every week. I mean, I get these marketing emails, oh, every day, every day. I'm like, yeah, they're going to get sick of me real fast that way, and I don't have that much stuff to say, right?
Right.
I'm not going to sit there and publish about my sick dog, or how I had to shovel the sidewalk and hurt my back, or it's like, I know people like to know stuff that's going on, but at the same respect, I read to learn about process. I read to learn about what's going on, and that's the kind of stuff I want to read. I don't want to read about, I made eggs and they fell on the floor, and the dog ate it, and then he ran away with it, and
Well, it's funny because like I would agree. Promoting is the worst part of it. I don't mind, like when I first started doing this, I didn't mind going on other people's channel and sit there for, I mean, an hour or 2 hours. There was one I was on for like 3.5 hours or whatever talking,
Right.
but I didn't mind that part of it. But like you said, putting out, all right, here's that post again about this, blah, blah, blah. This is, every day I've been doing this 3 times a day or whatever, and you're just like,
right.
But the honest thing is you can do all that. You can post on all your social medias, 5 times a day, and there's still going to be somebody that says, oh, I didn't know you put out a book, So.
Exactly. Yeah. I just, I'm not a natural salesman, so I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
But and you can do it in a way that's not like a used car salesman,
right?
Snake oil. I'm not selling you snake oil, but
a lot of people need snakes oiled now.
but there are a lot of people creating comics. It's like, I like to go to the larger shows and set up, but you're competing against a lot of other artists. Like, if you go to Baltimore, there's tons of artists, a great show. But, as an independent, I'm sitting there trying to sell to people who want Spider-Man or Batman or,
right.
And so, admittedly, in Baltimore, there are a few people that would, but, most of the shows now, although I'm finding with hometown shows, it's a lot different because there's consistency and I'm there a lot. So that people come back and say, when's the next book? And I'm going to, you have that dialogue. So that I'm finding I like the smaller shows better. There's, but, like I said, there's a lot of people doing comics and, everyone wants eyeballs. It's all about the eyeballs now. Get your eyeballs over here. Look at my stuff, right? I'm not a salesman. One time I was at Baltimore and there was a guy, he had the same line and he would say it over and over and he would imitate the characters in the book. And it was driving me crazy. I just was like, I would just want to kill this guy. If I had a bat, and I had to listen to it for 3 days, and it was like the same line over and over. Hey, come here, hey, as soon as you make eye contact, it's like going to one of these home shows. I went last week. Eye contact. I got you. Come here, my space puppy.
Yeah, I made a comment. I was watching Death Metal Hero last night, and he had Phil from Zaid Comics on, and they were talking about indie comics and going to a con and stuff like that. I'm like, there's just like this balance between because like I'm drawn now to the indie area, but I'm like it's like a gauntlet, it's like you want to try to find stuff you're really interested in without avoiding the people you're really not interested in, it's just because like you said, there's always those people that are like, hey, you check out my book,
Right. Hey, you like robots? Hey, you like puppies? Come here, I got the book for you.
The one guy I mentioned earlier where it had been a year and I hadn't read the book that I bought of him. He's a publisher and he's got tons of different books. And he had a good way of doing it, which was like, hey, what are you interested in? Oh, you like horror? I have these 5 horror books. Oh, do you like this? Oh, I have this, So, at least he had, I want to say it was hard to say no to him, but I mean, at least he was coming to you where you are, he wasn't like trying to sell you a superhero book, but not interested in superhero books, so.
Yeah.
But
I just balk from any hard sell anyway, it's like, oh no. I like to veer towards things I naturally like. I select, I'll scan tables. If something catches my eye, I'll go into it. And
right.
then they start talking to me about it, and then I veer away. Out of here, getting a hard sell now. Oh no. Maybe I'm wrong, but and I'm not a salesman, so it's a tough thing,
Yeah, I hear you. That's one of the harder parts of it all.
Maybe someday there'll be an AI robot that'll do my selling for me.
There you go.
Yeah. So I do the cons occasionally, but like I said, I like the local shows. There's a couple of library shows I've done. The Schenectady one is really good.
Really?
And and it's fun talking to kids because kids are excited about everything, like, oh my God. So they have this thing where it's a treasure hunt. So they come up with these little stickers that you have stickers, and they have a book, and they have to fill it up, and then they get something. I think a bookmark or something. They give them a library. So when they come up, they got to talk to you and ask you, and you get them engaged, and you start talking to them, and it's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's I put in for my first show, so to speak, but it was a library show, and it was just like, hey, fill this thing out, tell us what you're selling, blah blah blah, and then we'll let people know who basically if you're accepted or not. And so far I haven't heard anything back, so I don't know. Maybe they rolled me out. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So the one I do, they sort of rotated it. They don't have the same people every year, so it's like
that's
first
good
year,
too.
like, oh, they invite me back. They must have hated me. But, it wasn't the case. They just.
I figured, hey, I'm doing something with Poe. It'd be a shoe-in for a library show, right?
Sure.
The cover has boobs on it though too, so I don't know. That might be.
Well, they actually give you. And I save these too. They're little tent things that say for adults only. And I save from the shows, so I put them up so that the kids don't come up and go, oh, and I get arrested for.
I always worry about that stuff,
right?
Because over the years I've acquired some like adult comics, and I'm just like, what do I do with these things? There's a couple that are like Cherry by Larry Welts, and some of those are pretty valuable. But I'm like, who am I selling them to? Where am I selling them? I don't know.
Right? Set up your booth. Adult bookstore.
I'm like, I mean,
I actually went through some and I just threw them out. I'm like, I don't know. I there's a certain cheesecake I like, but this was just too far over the board. I think.
Yeah. There was some
graphic novels were the Fantagraphics Eros line that were just maybe it was.
Oh yeah.
Some of that stuff was, and if it's good art, I like that. But it's like, okay, you have kids and grandkids now. It's like, come into the comic room. Oh, wait, don't look over here.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't have very many of them, so it's not a huge deal. But I'm just like, I ran into a guy at a comic show, and he had a couple of them, and I'm like, how do you? I was like, are you interested in any more of these? He's like, I don't know. He goes, I have a really hard, he had sold some off, but he's like, I have a really hard time selling them,
there's a big boom in kids stuff now because, their parents are, that age, 30s and 40s right now, or, are buying that stuff because they got kids. And so, and a lot of that generation, is, 80s generation have come of age and they have kids and they grew up reading comics or whatever, or books and movies. And So, they're bringing their kids along, and, so
Yeah.
I can see it, but,
I
I don't know. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, I got to get that stuff.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
nobody
that's
else
the thing.
has it.
If you look at, and I don't want to, bash anything, but if you look at, like, when we were kids, you could pick up an issue of Spider-Man or Batman or whatever, and
Right.
read it. It didn't matter how old you were,
Right. Right.
and now, like you say, all ages, and people are like, oh, it must suck, and the stuff they do, they put, oh, this is for kids. It's so dumbed down. You're like,
Mhm.
who is this for? Because it's not really for kids, because the kids are like, this isn't any good, so
Well, kids always tend to want what the parents have, right?
Yeah.
They're smart. They know. Like, when I was a kid, it was like, oh, you can't look at those movies. Well, that's what I want. That's what we wanted even more. Now I gotta have it.
some way I'm getting that. Yeah.
Nowadays it's parents on the phone or on the iPad. It's like, oh, the kids
Yeah.
want that, because
Yeah.
that's what the parents do.
Yeah.
It's the other kids do the same thing, and then it's their peers want it, and the peers want it because the parents had it too. So
Yep.
you know
100%.
it's it was the same with adult stuff when I was growing up. It was like, oh, the adults had it, I wanted it. They saw the adult movies, and I wanted to see those too. So
I know my parents. I don't. If they knew there was a rating scale for movies, they didn't let on because I tell this all the time, but I remember seeing Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the theater.
Mhm.
They took me. I don't know how old I was, 7 years old or something,
Yeah.
8 years old, and I'm watching Texas Chainsaw
I
Massacre.
remember going to the drive-ins when I was a kid, and when my parents went to see The Graduate, and they made me cover my eyes. He was in her underwear, Mrs. Robinson or something. It's like, don't look, put your head down, back. And like my daughter, she's like, oh, when I was 12 years old, you showed me Pulp Fiction, or like, oh, well, schooled early.
I could remember.
When I was 12 years old, it's much different than.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I could remember going to the drive-in where they had multiple screens,
Mhm.
and be watching one movie, and then you'd turn and you go look at the other one. There'd be some half-naked woman on the other screen.
We had one near us, the Tri-City Twin, and you go, I gotta go to the concession stand, and you run over to the fence and watch the other movie for like a half an hour, right?
Oh, that was good stuff.
Uh-huh.
All right.
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's. So I was just going to ask, top, just kind of a goofy thing, but top 3. You can decide, or we can do them all. Top 3 movies, TV shows, or music, like albums or something that you still go back to for like inspiration.
Well, my music tastes are all over the place. I'm not like a person who likes to listen to stuff I listened to when I was growing up. I just, it's like if I hear Paint It Black or Sympathy for the Devil again, I think I'm going to vomit, because it's like, it's like, how many times have I heard this?
Right.
Certain, like, I grew up with the Beatles, and it's like, oh God, if I hear that song again, it's just going to make me vomit. How about something new? I like new stuff, and if they say there's nothing new under the sun, and maybe there's shades of other bands, but it's newer sounding. So I look for new stuff as much as I can. There's certain artists I like to go back to. I like to listen to early 70s glam rock.
Okay.
Roxy Music, Brian Eno stuff, Slade, all that stuff, Mott the Hoople, things like that, early Alice Cooper, things like that. Things that I grew up with listening to, early Bowie stuff, 72, 73. But again, once in a great while, not all the time, because it's just like, oh God, I listened to that. And then you turn on the radio and the oldie stations just play the same songs over and over. It's like, oh, I can't listen to this stuff. So sometimes I'll just experiment and listen to classical just to mix things up, because I know very little about classical. So it's like, yeah, I could learn something here that I don't know about composers or whatever. So, and then I'll come back to, pop music. Movies, I really like Tenet. Tenant and the Batman series that was done with Christian Bale. So all Christopher Nolan stuff, I think he's like one of my favorite directors right now.
Okay. I don't think I saw Tenet.
Oh, no, it's a really good movie. It's like James Bond, but with a really adult or really cool plot. So it's sort of his ode to Bond, where the things, I don't know how to exactly describe it. So the things are running backwards and forwards at the same time in time.
Oh, wow.
It's like the people from the future are attacking the past, and the people from the past are defending and have to stop the people from the future. So,
wow.
There's like scenes where the guns are flying, are shooting backwards. The bullets are going back into the gun,
Wow.
And
interesting.
That and yeah, I like his movies a lot right now. And I just finished reading a book on how he creates films and some of the reference behind it. It took me a long time to get through that. I had so many comics to read through the book. I am reading the Slow Horses book. I like that series. I've been watching that show. It's sort of in between seasons now. My wife and I like to stream stuff, so we're watching that.
What's the name of it again?
Slow Horses.
Slow Horses?
Yeah, it's Gary Oldman plays a washed-up spy who runs the Slow Horses, are like the disgraced spies, and they go to this place called Slough House, where they're sort of like get them away from regular MI5 because they're screw-ups. So it's a gang of screw-ups that he leads, and they get stuck in all these situations, and the regular heads of MI5 use them to take advantage of. So it's on Apple TV. It's pretty good. The books are pretty good. I like the book. Sometimes they're pretty close to the show. Sometimes they're completely different from the show. What else? Yeah. But anything else? I think I covered it. Movies, books.
Yeah, you got them. All right.
What do you like?
What do I like?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm obviously I'm a Batman fan, and out of those, the Dark Knight, I love that movie. It's a constant battle in my head between the 1989 Batman, and that one is the best Batman for me. But the list moves around. Mask of the Phantasm is up there, though.
Yeah.
But
no, I've never seen that.
Really?
No,
that's a great movie.
I heard good things about it.
I'm looking at an action figure from it right now.
Actually like the third trilogy, but the Dark Knight Rises.
You like that one?
I trashed that, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one. I didn't think Bane is way better in that than he was in Batman and Robin. But it's still not Bane, and I didn't like the idea of Talia or whatever being the brains behind the brawn kind of thing. So I wasn't a huge fan of that. But Batman Begins is an awesome movie too. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of right now. I don't even know. I rarely go back to things to revisit them, because I'm spending so much time finding old stuff that I've never seen before, I just watched a horror movie I think it was called Bay Cove.
Okay.
From want to say it was the late 70s, early 80s. It has Pamela Sue Martin in it,
Okay.
from Nancy Drew.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there was also a very young Woody Harrelson was in it.
Ah,
Um, and that was actually a pretty decent movie. I was, I mean,
mhm.
you never know. But I mean, just
Woody Harrelson was in a bunch of stuff I like. I liked True Detective. I don't know if you saw series 1 of that. That was amazing.
yeah.
The rest of the series that's pretty bad. But the first series that he did with Matthew McConaughey is really good.
Mhm.
Has a sort of a metaphysical, supernatural tint to it. And so you never really know if it is supernatural or it's not supernatural. So
Okay.
it kind of keeps you on the thing. And I think you can see that on HBO. But also Natural Born Killers, I thought was,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. That was a crazy movie. Yeah.
show you
It's
my
been a
age.
long time since
I
I've
had a
seen
laser
it.
disc.
I mean,
Pull out my laser disc copy and run it
I-
and flip it.
I did a flea market this weekend, and there was a guy that had a box full of laser discs. I was flipping through.
Mhm.
The only one I own is for. I can see it. It's for Batman Forever. That's the only laser disc I own.
Well, I still have my player.
Nice.
And so, I still have my VHS and my VHS collection. And, I'm looking at my 8-track collection right now going, oh, what did I get for this? But it seems like cassettes have caught on yet, though. So I'm kind of waiting for that.
The 8-tracks. I used to have a portable 8-track player and then a bunch of 8-tracks. But I hated that format. I hated that. You get halfway through a song and then click,
We used to take them out and bang them on the dashboard and put it back in if it started. Play,
like blowing on the Atari games,
And then when cassettes came out, that was like the hot new technology. It's like, oh my God,
Yeah, at one point, because I'm super into music, ever since, I started out listening to my mom's stuff, which was, Elvis and the Beatles and, 50s, 60s stuff.
Mhm.
And, and then once I discovered Kiss, it was like all over, it was, that's the stuff I was into. But I mean, I'm all over the place. But I remember at one point I had a cassette case that held 120 cassettes.
Mhm.
And then I had a second one that held 60. And I would take that. If I was going on a 20-minute ride down the road, I'd throw that 120 cassette case in the car.
I did when they were on the Kiss Army tour, I think.
What's that?
I did see them once. They played in my hometown,
Kiss?
Albany, at the Palace Theater, and I think it was the Kiss Army album was out.
Kiss. For Kiss?
Yeah.
It must have been. Yeah, that's what the name of the fan club was. I'm trying to think of what tour it might have been at the Palace.
Painting. I don't know what tour it was. I haven't followed Kiss in so long.
Yeah.
Probably since Beth came out. So, but they were. It was probably like their second or third album. It had to be probably, God, I don't know.
Is it live?
77? Oh yeah, it was live.
77 would have been Love Gun.
Yeah, probably.
That was a Ken Kelly cover.
Yeah, it was between Ken Kelly and then they had another one that had the big ring where they're.
Oh yeah, Rock and Roll Over. Yep.
Yeah.
They had that. That's funny. They actually had that guy. Since you really don't know much about Kiss, they actually had the guy that did that cover come back, and he did not their last album they did, but their next to the last album called Sonic Boom, and he did something similar to that cover for Sonic Boom. So that was really cool.
You have Kevin Conrad in the book. Have you seen his Kiss tribute band?
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen him. I think 3 times now.
Oh wow,
yeah.
So you're like a regular groupie now.
I've been trying to get out this year to see him, and it just hasn't worked out. But it's funny you mentioned Kiss Tribute because Quarantine is coming to the Cohoes Music Hall.
Okay.
They're a Kiss tribute band, and
Mhm.
the singer is Chris Jericho, the wrestler.
Okay.
He's also the singer for Fozzy,
Hmm.
his own band. So yeah, they created this Kiss tribute band during the pandemic, and that's where they came up with the name Quarantine with a K.
Oh, wow.
And it was just something for them to do while they were not doing anything, and so they're taking it out on the road, I guess.
I think the whole wrestling and comics connection is really interesting. I mean, I used to do wrestling magazines, and I used to go down Madison Square Garden and shoot the shows and stuff. And I did interviews. I interviewed Roddy Piper, I think, and a couple of other people, Jake the Snake, and these guys, But those were the guys I knew. I don't have any idea what's going on now.
Yeah. Well, early on, when I would talk to John Hebert, we both know John,
Mhm.
And people would talk to him about artwork. That's one thing he would always say. He goes, if you want to learn how to draw like a comic book, pick up a wrestling magazine, because it's the same thing. It's guys in exaggerated poses, with big muscles,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that was a normal jump for me too, is comics to Kiss was easy because it was superheroes
Right.
playing music.
Right.
And then wrestling, I think wrestling was another thing like comics. There was always wrestling around. My grandmother loved wrestling, So
Mhm.
I've been going to live wrestling events since the 70s. So yeah.
Well, we used to watch it. I mean, there was only on Saturday afternoons back when we only had a couple of TV channels, and we'd always watch it in the afternoons in black and white.
Yep.
I think McMahon was probably about 17 years old.
The announcer. Yep. It's probably when his dad still owned it.
Yeah, his dad still owned it, and they used to beat him up all the time. Oh yeah, McMahon, and they smack him around. He was like a skinny geek,
Yep. Oh, times change,
Yes. All right,
Alrighty.
all
well,
set.
Where can people find you?
I'm on.
I did put your website up, and I'll add it to the description of the video.
Well, that's where they can find me then.
Okay, I know you're on X. You're on
Instagram? I'm on X, but I don't go on a lot. I don't know.
Okay.
They're trying to sell me something that I just they're buying. I am on Facebook, Instagram. I am on, but it's usually under Whiting Studio, Whiting Art.
Okay.
I could send you the links. I'm also on Substack. I do have a newsletter that I publish biweekly with some sort of a behind the scenes process stuff. I think this week I just put one out about, I just did a commission for somebody and how I screwed it up and I had to go back and fix it. So, I've been saving that one for a while. Like, oh, here we go. I screwed that up.
All right. Well,
and so when are we going live on Kickstarter?
Monday at 12:05.
This coming Monday.
Yes, this coming Monday.
Okay.
12:05. Finally going to pull the trigger, and we'll see how it goes. The goal is $300. So if we can't make that,
I think you can do that in an hour.
we're gonna be in trouble. But I was super excited because of the guys on the last stream I was on. That's going to bug me because I can't remember their name. But they were super helpful. They got people over there, and we ended up within a couple of days, we ended up making goal on Fund My Comic, which was awesome.
Oh, cool. So to answer your question, they'll let you do 3 days if you want to do 3 days.
Okay. All right. So I want to do like 3 weeks.
When I was in the guest room, the green room there, I heard talking about it. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I hadn't looked at it, but I'm like, I don't want to do a month. let's do 3 weeks, and
A lot
then
of guys will do 3 weeks now, cut it down because the middle slog really gets depressing and people become suicidal. You know, it's like, oh, nobody loves me. They're not supporting me. What's going on? And then you start looking at those ads you get in the email. Wow, 10,000 subscribers. I can get them for you. Like, maybe I should do this. Maybe, you know,
I'm already getting,
you just start lowering prices, you know?
yeah, it was hilarious because like when I did Fund My Comic, I had none of that stuff, right? As soon as I start talking about Kickstarter, I'm getting all these people, hey, well, I'm really interested in your project, you know, what do you think of, you know, I'm like, oh man, just go away.
Oh yeah, they'd be like, and then some of them will fund $1 and then like send you an email like, oh, I saw your project, it's really interesting, and would you like to buy my book? And it's like, no, I don't think so. Here's your $1 back. You know?
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks.
Exactly.
That's the other thing too. With at least with Fund My Comic, if once people give you the money, they give you the money. It's not like there's no takebacks, you know. Where Kickstarter,
Kickstarter, I was talking to somebody a friend of mine who did one, and he had a couple of people who contributed like a couple $100 each, and then just pulled the rug out right underneath, you know. So he's getting close to funding, and it's like,
it's
ridiculous. And it's some people do it as a game. Some people just, you know, do it to tank you, you know?
Yeah. You'd hope it's the best case, which is, you know, all right, the guy ended up, you know, he had his heating bill came in and he doesn't have the money anymore or something, you know.
The same guy unsubscribed. I got to find out where he lives, track him down, show up at his house. We did that once when I was doing the horror magazine. We got a letter from some kid saying, "You suck, you're terrible," right? And then we called up and we found out where he lived, and we called on the phone and we said, "What do you mean we suck?" He was like, "Oh my God, you found me. I'm so sorry."
That's when you could do crank calls and people wouldn't know, you know.
Right.
All right.
Puss days. Yeah.
All righty. Well, we'll call it a show here, and hopefully I'm going to try to do this again in 2 weeks with another guest. We'll see who I can get on.
Well, by that time you should be funded, right?
Yes, it should be well on our way to that lounge suite.
All right.
So, all right. Take care, everybody.
All right. Good night.